In today's Leeds news, Ramazani saga deepens, dominoes start to fall, England's number one, Conrad Harder transfer situation, and 4 clubs race for Schulz. Thursday, the 27th of August, you're here at the Leeds View, your daily Leeds United news. There is a ton of stuff to talk about today, so we're going to rattle off some of the very quick ones out of the way to bring you up to speed before we get into the main news stuff. Illan Meslier, having just moved to Arsenal, looks like he could be on his way out of Arsenal and heading off towards Marseille, or that could be Leeds United's backup goalkeeper. Now, Lucas, Perri, they're interested in both of them. Perri's situation hasn't been sorted at Leeds, and we'll get to that in a bit more detail. The Igor Paixão situation, for those who care about it, yesterday was said to have an agreement in place with Sunderland heading there. Olympique Marseille have said this morning, nope, that's not the case. There's no agreement in place and they want the player to stay. And Paixão is believed to have turned down every single offer on the table and he wants to stay in Marseille as well. Leeds will play either Chelsea or Luton in the next round of the League Cup, and it's away from home to absolutely nobody's surprised at all. And Parag Morate has rejoined the Rangers board as vice chairman. If you want to get more detail on that, I spoke to Andrea Russo and Adonna Store last night in our first Wider View podcast, and we discussed that one as well as the further back kind of all-round look of where Leeds United's situation is right now, and that will be out every single Wednesday to take a bigger look at what Leeds stories are floating around in the world of football and Leeds impact as well. Check all that out if you want. If you want to hype today's video, that would be massively appreciated. Stick a like on it as well. And we'll dive into the main stories today and start off with Largie Ramazani. Right, some more detail on Largie Ramazani's next destination. Valencia, as we all know, still remain keen on him. That is his personal preference and he wants that move. However, there is now more reports of more clubs being interested in the Leeds United wide man. Yahoo Sports say that Valencia is still his preferred destination. In fact, they've gone as far as to word it as he wants to move come hell or high water. Now, he might end up drowning himself if he tries to push that agenda. His agent is believed to be working with Valencia right now and Leeds around some form of a loan with a conditional obligation to buy come the end of the season, not an option. And that obligation is rumoured to be in and around £3.5 million. Leeds are believed now to have dropped their asking price from £6 million down to 3.5 after genuinely lack of interest in the player at £6 million. Now, journalist Nacho Sanchez also says that Leeds are holding firm on this price, if that's to be believed, and Ramazani will not leave the club for anything less than that £3.5 million asking price. However, there are now other clubs that have gotten into the mix over the last couple of days. 2 English clubs have been named. West Ham United and Burnley are both interested in a permanent move for Largie Ramazani. And there's also said to be an unnamed Italian club who would more likely be on the Valencia side of loan with an option come the end of the season likely to happen. Now, One Football say that the £3.5 million permanent move for Largie Ramazani is being discussed between Leeds United, Burnley and West Ham United right now. And Leeds want to insert a sell-on clause into that so they can try and recoup extra cash to bring it in and around what they initially spent on Largie Ramazani when they purchased him. The Burnley Way also backed this up. They say that a £3.5 million plus sell-on fee is being discussed. But Ramazani's waiting on the Valencia offer should it actually come. Now, they're rumoured to have gotten involved again in the last 24 hours and made their attempt to sign Ramazani. West Ham and the unnamed Italian club are said to have inquired, had initial conversations and are now monitoring that situation to see what happens with Valencia. And this feels like it's going to all come down to who gets what they want. If Ramazani gets what he wants, off he'll go to Valencia on a season-long loan and Leeds will get some form of an obligation come the end of the year. Not ideal. If Leeds get what they want, Ramazani will head off to the Championship and Leeds will get money up front now that they can probably use to spend on incoming players for this summer's window. So, yeah, Leeds are probably going to need it for some incomings as well. But he might not be the only player that's moving away from Leeds United this week. We'll move on to talk about the goalkeeper domino effect. From one saga to the next saga, and the domino effect may be about to start on the Leeds United goalkeeping situation, with developments over the past few hours this morning, and Michael Zetterer's deal may be about to fall straight into Leeds United's lap. Florian Plettenberg of Sky Sports Germany has said this morning that Eintracht Frankfurt have gotten their number one target for their goalkeeping position this summer, and they've got a deal in place for Noah Atubolu from Freiburg, which will free up Michael Zetterer to leave Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, Kicker have reported this morning that Zetterer did visit Leeds over the course of last weekend, and that visit was described as being a rapid change of heart for the shot stopper. Previous week, his agent had said the player wasn't interested in the move, was very happy with life in Frankfurt and wasn't planning on moving away. That visit is said to have changed his mind on the situation, and Zetterer is keen on a move to Elland Road. Now, Frankfurt still want about £4.2 million for the German shop stopper. Leeds are still believed to have a pretty decent transfer budget available to them should they decide to move. And the details on this deal, according to Kicker, are described as being down to the final details. So this looks like it could be getting closer and closer to getting done. Leeds have been very confident they get this one done, and now the player seems to be lining up with that as well. Now, that kicks in a lot of other deals as well. Lucas Perri will be freed up then to move away from Leeds to Torino in Italy now that he will end up at Torino. It's in a deal that's been going on for over a month now for them. Leeds are not bringing in Michael Zetterer if they're not getting rid of Lucas Perri. To see Lucas Perri move off and that all to be organised behind the scenes. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. We'll see how it goes. Let's move on. Bit of a transfer break and a palate cleanser for a few minutes. Former England number one David James believes that Leeds have landed a player capable of becoming England's long-term number one, and believes that Manchester City and Enzo Maresca might just rue the day that they agreed to let James Trafford leave the club. David James was speaking to Live Football Tickets about this, and he didn't exactly hold back, and he said the following on James Trafford's move to Leeds United. Leeds have got an amazing goalkeeper on their hands in James Trafford. He could be their goalkeeper for the next decade, and he started off his career with 2 clean sheets, so it doesn't get any better than that. I also think that he'll be England's goalkeeper for the next 10 years as well. He's that good. James went on to say that of all the outgoings that have left Manchester City this summer, this is the one that might hurt them more in the long term after just getting him back and then letting him go again. They believe that, and he believes that Enzo Maresca might have made a mistake here, and he said this: of all the outgoings in Man City this summer, Trafford was the most disappointing to me. He had an unfortunate season last year with City signing Donnarumma just after he had re-signed, but Leeds have got a top keeper on their hands. He was brilliant for City in the League Cup final, and he possesses a level of calmness which will spread throughout the team at Leeds. I think we've already seen that calmness spreading amongst the backline already. There was a real sense of relaxation about Leeds in the cup game during the week. At no point did I think Leeds were going to concede, and that's a brand new feeling for quite some time. So it does give that this weekend will be the biggest challenge that he'll get. Brentford's attack is on absolute fire. Leeds' defence is ice cold right now. We'll see which of them cancels each other out. We will have a watch along on YouTube as well to cover that match and what will be Leeds' biggest test of the season so far. We're 2 games in. But you know what I mean. This is the one to keep an eye on. Is this defence as good as we actually think it is? We'll see. Let's move on. Right, so 2 transfer stories to bring you up to speed as we get into the last 5 days of the transfer window. And Leeds still expected to do 3 or 4 bits of business between now and the end of the window, and they're leaving it a little bit late, and the clock is ticking on this, but we'll have to wait and see. One of the players being mentioned again today is Conrad Harder. We did talk about him yesterday, and yesterday he was said as a player that Leeds liked and were monitoring, but not a player they were actively pursuing right now. Now, his situation might have changed into Leeds' favour, that might see Leeds actually make a move. But there is still some caveats on this. And this is still very much an if signing or if movement for Leeds. Lazio, who were believed to be the front runners for this, who had a loan with an option to buy on the table with RB Leipzig, who were considering that move, are now believed to have stepped back from that offer. They need to get some exits out the door before they can bring in Conrad Harder. And that's proven to be slightly more tricky than they thought it would be. And that could have changed Leeds' situation. Leeds are now being described by Sports Witness as being in advanced talks with RB Leipzig for the signing of Conrad Harder. And they say the deal that Leeds are exploring is a loan with an option to buy as well. So similar to Lazio's, because Leeds want to see if the striker can actually adapt to life in the Premier League. He's an exciting talent, but he hasn't got a massive amount of top flight games under his belt. So Leeds might be just testing the playing field here to see if they can get him for a similar deal that Lazio got, and also would save some pennies for Leeds in the window. So report in Germany says Leeds have gone from minimal interest to front of the queue, and we'll have to see how this one pans out over the next couple of days. But I would take this one, personal opinion here, with a pinch of salt. I'm not 100% sure it's exactly what Leeds are looking for right now, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's move on to the final one, and a returning name and an interesting situation, and it's Paval Schulz. So we know that Paval Schulz exists somewhere on one of Leeds' lengthy shortlists, and his transfer picture got a hell of a lot more interesting in the last 24 hours. There are a host of clubs labelled as being interested in monitoring Paval Schulz's situation at Olympique Lyonnais, and that might have moved a step further today. A lot of the clubs were said to be watching it and not making a move because of Olympique Lyonnais' financial situation. Similar to Marseille, if they'd missed out on Champions League football last night, they're on the hook for £100 million worth of sales, or they could face being relegated to the second division in France on administrative relegation. And that is exactly what happened last night. They didn't win, and they're out of the Champions League, and they are now in a situation where they have to sell. Talks between Leeds United and Lyon were believed to have been held back in July. At that point, Leeds walked away from the deal because the valuation between what Leeds thought they could get him for and what Lyon wanted to sell him for were miles apart. Now, right now, that could have changed. Juventus, Wrexham, of all clubs, Everton, Aston Villa and Leeds are all being mentioned as clubs watching his situation. Leeds Live stated not that long ago that Schulz was still a player that was on Leeds' shortlist, and we all know Leeds do like a market opportunity, and Paval Schulz could be one of those players to give Leeds a market opportunity. Given the fact that they now need sales, Leeds could do what they did with Lucas Perri last year and nip in and get him for a price that is closer to what they wanted to pay earlier in the transfer window. He did play last night in the game in the Champions League. He came off the bench in the 75th minute, and it's a really interesting one if he is on Leeds wide /10/9 shortlist. All the talk about Igor Paixão and whether he's going to Sunderland or staying at Marseille, or will Leeds try and go in and get a deal for him at the last minute. Paval Schulz, also in his first season in France last year, with less minutes on the pitch, outperformed Igor Paixão and can also operate as a striker, a second striker, a 10 or a wide player. So there's a lot more versatility to him. Now, Leeds are said to be aware of the whole situation here, but not necessarily desperate to make a move for him. I'd love to see these shortlists and who's on the top of them, because if these players aren't, it must be a hell of a player that Parag Morata is keeping a few pennies back for just in case he can get a deal done. But this situation does feel like it's going to develop. Leeds are targeting this as one of their main positions this summer, whether it's Schulz, Paixão, Mudryk or somebody else. Daniel Farke still wants a proper signing, as he's labelled it, in before the window closes. We'll have to keep an eye on it and wait and see. If anything major happens, I will jump back on, of course, and let you know the detail on it. Outside of that, you can check out last night's Wider View podcast. We're just trying to work with a Brentford fan at the moment to get the opposition view out. That might go out a bit later this week once we can get it sorted. And outside that, have a great rest of your day. Hit subscribe and like on the way out the door. I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.